For those who do not know who I am, my name is Adim Uchidiuno, and I read the book from Atomic Habits from James Clear. And these are just some of the things that I learned from this book. And I want to just show you some of the stuff that I learned. And hopefully this resonates with you as much as it resonates with me. And yeah, I read this book so you didn't have to, of course. So yeah. So Atomic Habits by James Clear has changed my perspective on my life for real, right? I've learned a lot from this book. And I've learned that your life is not built by one singular big action. Your life is built by the small things you repeat every single day. The boring stuff, the simple stuff, the quiet stuff, the stuff you do at 2 a.m. because you made a promise to yourself to get it done, right? That is exactly what pushes you and moves your life into a direction that you want it to, right? Most people disrespect small habits because they only see what it does for them today, not seeing what happens when that same action is repeated 1,000 times. One rep does not mean a lot. One clean meal isn't going to get you shredded. One focused hour isn't going to make you a billionaire. But 1,000 reps, you'll get shredded from that. 1,000 clean meals, you will get a Greek god body from that. 1,000 focused hours will make you more money than not doing those 1,000 focused hours. That is where you create separation. Separation is built through repetition and intensity. Investing is such a great example of this, right? So Warren Buffett, right, talks about how nobody truly knows where the market is going tomorrow. All these gurus that you see online that says Bitcoin's going to go to $1 million in the next 12 years. It might, right? It might. But let's say something more. Bitcoin's going to go to $1 million in the next year, or $500,000 the next year. These guys don't know what they're talking. They don't know, bro. Like, no one can tell the future, right? No one can tell the future, but a centibillionaire like Warren Buffett knows a few things, right? And he does speak about, if you consistently invest into something simple and solid that retains its value over a long period of time, stay patient and make the conscious choice not to panic and sell when the market seems uncertain, when things get uncomfortable, you allow long-term positive compounding to work its magic, right? And I'm going to take some advice from the centibillionaire, right? I'm going to take his advice, right? That is how small actions become massive results. And this does not only apply to money, right? It applies to fitness. It applies to business. It applies to your confidence. It applies to your discipline. It applies to you becoming the kind of person you actually respect. Nobody wakes up with $1 million saved by accident. Nobody builds a strong and aesthetic body by accident. Nobody becomes great by doing one magical thing one time. It happens through repeated conscious decisions that promote growth. Clocking into work, reading the pages, making the videos, training when you said you would, saving the money, building the skill, doing the boring task over and over and over again. That is how the results come. One of the best examples from my own life was literally reading Atomic Habits. I told myself I was going to read 10 pages a day. Some days I read more than 10. Some days I would just only read 10. But eventually, out of nowhere, I got to the conclusion of the book. And I realized I was done. That is the power of small habits. You may not feel like you're moving fast, but if you keep showing up, one day you look up and you realize you're way farther than you ever thought you would ever be. Another thing that I learned from the book is being a professional. What this means is understanding that not every moment of your life is going to be exciting. Not everything is going to feel intense. Not everything is going to feel motivating. Not everything is going to feel like a movie scene. A lot of success is a grind, and at times people don't want to do the work. And that is why most people don't become the person that they want to be. They want the body, but they don't want to track the food. They want to have a lot of money, but they don't want to budget. They want the confidence, but they don't keep promises to themselves. Right? That is where professionals separate themselves from amateurs. Amateurs only show up when they feel inspired. Professionals show up because that is who they are. Look at a guy like Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. One of my favorite things he's ever said was that he was asked, Shai, how do you stay so consistent? And his answer was like, my whole life is consistent. And that was such a G answer because his whole life is consistent. From when he eats, it's consistent. From what he eats is consistent. When he sleeps, it's consistent. How he trains is consistent. How he approaches his day is consistent. So when people see him performing at an MVP level, it's not random. The game is just showing his habits. That is the part people miss. The performance is public. The preparation is private. People see the points, the highlights, the awards, the success, but they do not see the boring meals, the early workouts, the recovery, the repetition, the routine, the everyday thought of, I really don't want to do this, and shutting that stupid voice up and still getting it done regardless. That is why consistency is so powerful. It's not just something you do, it becomes who you are. And honestly, I think adulthood, right, is about becoming a professional at showing up. A lot of people are absent. A lot of people disappear when things get hard. A lot of people only show up when it benefits them. But showing up all the time is where you actually grow. Showing up to work, showing up to the gym, showing up for your family, showing up for your goals, and showing up for yourself. That is what builds trust. And this is where the book made me realize something very, very important. The work you're running away from is the work you need to run toward. That is the work that changes you. The boring work, the repetitive work, the deep work, that work that does not give you instant dopamine. Because if you do not do it, someone else will. Someone else will. Someone else will train, someone else will save, someone else will study, someone else will build, someone else will stay disciplined when you decided to quit. And that is why they win and create the life you wanted. Another valuable lesson I learned from Atomic Habits is that not everyone is built for the same path, right? That is not an excuse to avoid hard work. Effort will always, 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 always matter. However, choosing an environment that aligns with your strengths matters just as much and sometimes even more, right? James Clear illustrates this through Olympic champions Michael Phelps, right? As well as Mikhail Gorush. Both reached the highest level in their respective sports. Right? Gold medalists. But their physical traits were uniquely suited to different demands. Right? Phelps, tall frame, about 6'4", and long limbs gave him a major advantage in swimming, while El Garouge, a little bit lighter, about 5'9", 125 pounds, more compact build, was ideal for middle distance running. If they swap sports, neither would likely have dominated in the same way, right? Because each sport demands a different thing. The lesson is simple. Success becomes more likely when your effort is applied in an environment that complements your natural strengths, right? If you are naturally strong, use that. If you're naturally charismatic, use that. If you're naturally creative, use that. Do not waste your life trying to force yourself into a lane that fights against your strengths. Wemby is an amazing example of this. He is 7'4". 7'4". You know how crazy 7'4" is, bro? To be mobile, skilled, coordinated, and athletic at 7'4". Basketball is one of the best possible lanes for someone with those natural God-given talents. But if he tries to use that same body to become an elite wrestler, his height, long limbs, and high center of gravity might become disadvantages for him. Right? Same person with same abilities, but in a different lane. His potential has a completely different ceiling. The traits that make him extraordinary in one area may limit him in another. Hard work is always important, but hard work in the wrong vehicle can make life way harder than it needs to be. The best move is to find the lane where your natural gifts actually give you leverage, then work like crazy. That is where things start compounding aggressively, right? And these are just some of the lessons that I learned from reading this book. Of course, there's a whole lot of chapters in the book. There's so much more in this book, but these are the things that just resonate with me the most. And yeah, hopefully you learned some stuff from this. I know I have. And I'm honest, this book's like a good 9 for real. Like if you read this every single day, this book's like a 9 for real. It's a great book. It's an S tier book for real. And yeah. Hope you learned a lot. And yeah, again, my name's Adim, which I want you to like, subscribe, comment for the YouTube algorithm. And yeah, if you have any like things you want to add, things you've learned from reading this book, if you've read this book, leave in the comments for sure. We'll have a discussion. All right, thank you. Whoop-a!